Hi students, hope you are doing well. So today's topic is from microeconomics, consumers equilibrium. Now what is consumers equilibrium and what are the various concepts? So we are going to discuss in this topic. First, we need to understand the concept of utility because this is a very important component to understand the concept of consumers equilibrium. So utility is the want satisfying capacity of a commodity. If a commodity can satisfy consumers' want, it is not necessary that it has to be useful in general. Okay, a good may be useful or it may not be useful. That is a separate concept. But if it satisfies human want or consumers' want, then we say that it has utility. Utility can be two types, that is marginal utility and total utility. Marginal utility is additional utility or the additional want satisfying capacity of the commodity. Whereas total utility is that sum of the marginal utilities, that is the total amount of utility or the satisfaction that consumer derives. Now remember that we are interchangeably using the terms utility and satisfaction, but technically they are different from each other. Utility is want satisfying capacity of the commodity, whereas satisfaction is something which consumer derives from consuming a product or a commodity. So in case that want satisfying capacity of the commodity, which we term as utility, this can be of different types. That can be time utility, place utility, it can be knowledge or service utility. There are different types of utilities. We are confining our video the concept to marginal and total utility only. Okay, now we are going to discuss the relationship between total utility and marginal utility. Now, first, in order to understand the concept, the relationship between total utility and marginal utility, we need to understand the concept of law of diminishing marginal utility, that is law of DMU, right? So as the consumer consumes more and more units of a commodity, remember that units must be homogeneous. So as a consumer, you consume more and more units of a commodity, the additional satisfaction keeps on decreasing. That is, whatever satisfaction he derives from the consumption of the commodity or the units of the commodity, it keeps on diminishing. So when you suppose if whenever you have, say, you can say a glass of juice, okay, so the first glass of juice will give you maximum level of satisfaction, the second will give you lesser, the third may give you even lesser, and the fourth glass of juice you may not like to consume, right? So as more and more units of the same commodity is being consumed, are consumed, the satisfaction derived keeps on diminishing. This is the law of diminishing marginal utility, which is based on various other assumptions like consumer must be rational, the consumption is taking place in a short interval of period, and the price of the commodity remaining constant. So these are few basic fundamental assumptions on which law of DMU is based. Now, whenever we talk about law of DMU, due to which we can see that marginal utility is clearly, it is going down, that is, it is sloping downwards, negatively slope. So MUX is negatively slope, as you can see in this schedule, in this hypothetical data, that with the increase in units 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, marginal utility keeps on diminishing. It is because of the law of DMU. Now, when we have this decreasing values, we also have a value which is 0, which shows that the sixth unit, the marginal utility derived at 6th unit is 0. In fact, if consumer consumes the 7th unit, he is deriving negative utility, which means that instead of getting some satisfaction, he is getting dissatisfaction or he's dissatisfied. So this is an excess consumption, right? Now if you want to calculate TU, we can have, like, just simply you add, because TU, we can say that TU is sigma marginal utility. So we are going to add. So 20 plus 16 is 36, 48, 56, 60, 60, and again 56. So when we have total utility in this form 20, 36, 48, 56, you see that total utility is increasing but at the diminishing rate. So total utility increases at the diminishing rate initially. Now when marginal utility is 0, you can see that total utility is maximum. So this is the second relationship. As the marginal utility is 0, okay, total utility is at its maximum. Yes, it is very much possible that total utility may have achieved its maximum value even before MUX is 0. That doesn't matter. But when MUX out here, X means the commodity X. So when the marginal utility is 0, no doubt total utility is maximum. Now when marginal utility is negative, you see that total utility declines. So total utility declines when marginal utility is negative. One more important thing, that is the slope. Remember that the slope of TU is MU. Slope of TU is MU. So when we are going to find the slope, when we are finding the slope by drawing a tangent at different points, okay, what we are getting is, the marginal utility. So the slope of total utility is marginal utility. This is very important point to keep in mind. Rest you have to keep in mind the relationship between TU and MU point wise, as well as the schedule. You should practice the schedule, right? Now we are going to discuss the further concepts, that is the meaning of consumer's equilibrium. Now what is consumer's equilibrium? A situation. Now first you have to keep in mind that we are talking about a situation where a rational consumer, again I'm talking about this important term, consumer must be rational. The term rational means a consumer must take decision in his favor. That means he should know what is right, what is wrong for him. So a situation where a rational consumer demands such a quantity of the commodity, okay, which yields the maximum level of satisfaction. So maximum satisfaction is derived as such a quantity, okay, which you can say is a situation where consumer is said to be in the state of equilibrium. But remember, there is one more important point that has to be added, and that is there should be no tendency to bring any change from the current level of consumption. That means consumer should not bring any change. He should not be thinking of, no, I should have consumed more, or I should have consumed less. No, if the consumer is completely satisfied, yes, this is the maximum quantity or this is the optimum. So better we use the word optimum quantity, then we term it as a consumer's equilibrium situation. There are different approaches to determine consumer's equilibrium, right? So we have one approach which is generally discussed in a higher secondary level of class 11, 12, maybe in your CUET and CA foundation level. So we have introspective or psychological method, right? So introspective and psychological method is very common method that is being taught, discussed in, as I mentioned, in the level of higher secondary as well as entrance exam under UG. So cardinal approach, ordinal approach, these are the two approaches under introspective method. Cardinal approach was mainly brought into picture or was founded by Professor Alfred Marshall, whereas our ordinal approach, which is also known as indifference curve analysis, was highlighted and brought founded by Allen and Hicks. Now, we also have one more approach, though this particular approach is studied at higher level after class 12 in your undergraduate programs and even further. So we have behavioristic or scientific approach, which is also known as revealed preference theory. Revealed preference theory, again I'm mentioning, you may not be having this topic in your higher secondary level. This is, you will be studying it in the graduate undergraduate level. It was given by Professor Samuelson. So we have introspective method, behavioristic method, and these two approaches are right, to determine consumers equilibrium. But our next slide will be mainly focused on cardinal approach and ordinal approach only, right? So the next slide is, you are going to find cardinal approach.